live, not from New York. It's the Get Clear Show. And now, here's Laura.
Hello and welcome to the Get Clear Show. I'm Laura Wing, I'm your host, and what a fantastic show we are going to have for you today. I'm sitting here, well, not exactly here, I'm sitting with Jonathan Smith, and Jonathan is all the way in Atlanta, and I'm broadcasting from Kansas, and I just love modern technology, Jonathan, because it brings us together even when we're miles apart. So this is pretty exciting. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Laura. So glad to be here today.
Oh, I am so excited that you're here. I want to let our audience know why you are here today. So I met you, Jonathan, through your wife, actually. Your wife was on one of our Artist of the Week episodes probably 3 or 4 months ago now. It's been a little while.
Yeah, about a bit more ago.
Just an incredible, talented artist. And so we had her on the show, and she talked about her artwork and her passion for art. And we went through some of that stuff. And she and I just started talking and got to be friends. And I was telling her a little about my business and the things that I have going on and doing all of these workshops. And she said, you know, I think you and Jonathan might like to work together. And so I'm so glad that you and I connected, because I want my audience to learn all about you. So I would love for you to tell us a little about yourself and some of the incredible things that you've had the opportunity to do throughout your lifetime.
Okay, great. Well, Laura, I am a native of Monroe, Louisiana, which, if many of your audience members might be familiar with, a little show on A&E called Duck Dynasty. That show was filmed and produced right in my backyard there,
Wow.
actually in West Monroe, just across the river. I attended school there, high school. I went to college at Louisiana Tech. And I guess a little trivia right there, Louisiana Tech is where Terry Bradshaw went to school, and also Carl Malone, who was a classmate of mine when we were at Louisiana Tech.
Really?
Yes,
Oh my.
we were there at the same time. But worked in insurance accounting, statutory accounting for a number of years, and worked in statutory accounting in Louisiana and also here in Georgia. And found myself during this last economic upheaval that we've had kind of bouncing between some other opportunities. And but I've actually been a co-owner of my own business back in past. So, you know, I think I do kind of have a little entrepreneurial spirit still there, kind of burning a little bit. So hopefully I can bring it to the forefront.
Well, I've gotten to know you a little bit during the past couple of weeks, and I would definitely say you have a pioneering spirit about you, and that entrepreneurial spirit runs deep, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, it does.
Yeah. So as you and I have gotten to know each other a little bit, we started talking about this workshop that I do, and it's called What's Your Shape?
Yes.
And I know that when I talked to you about it and I explained to you what these different personality shapes were all about, you got pretty excited.
Yes, I did. You know, because I see, really having worked in corporate America for really most of my adult life, I see opportunities. And unfortunately, sometimes even if you're a senior level employee, unless you are in the seat of the president or a senior VP, it's often difficult to effect change. But I see opportunities for change, and I see that that the What's Your Shape system and workshop could be something to affect change in organizations. One of the biggest problems I see is that people in organizations do not communicate with each other well. Everyone has agendas, and we often spend a lot of time trying to get past those agendas while looking at a time clock and trying to, achieve a goal, but we haven't sat down and understood what makes the other person tick. I believe What's Your Shape gets straight to the point of what makes a person tick and gets them invested in the process.
It absolutely does. And it was so exciting as I was speaking to you a couple of weeks ago, and we were sharing stories, different things that had happened to us, different people that we had come across throughout both of our working careers. And we were able to say, yes, you know, this person was this shape and this person was this shape. And I see now why there may have been some miscommunication or some, you know, just a breakdown really in communication and not a lot of trust going on. But as we discussed those things, we started to talk about how we could repair some of those poor communication skills that are happening in the workplace. And I don't even necessarily want to say poor communication skills. They really truly are just misunderstandings, because people don't understand that while the way that I think and the way that I operate may be very, very correct for me, but it may not be how somebody else thinks and operates. And that doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that they are looking at something through a different perspective. And we teach people how to come together and how to understand one another so that an entire organization can work as a flowing system rather than fragmented pieces.
That's exactly correct.
And we talked about, you know, recently, I think it was October, November, I had the opportunity to travel to a school here in Southwest Kansas. I live in Northwest Kansas, but Northeast Kansas, went to the opposite corner of the state, and I got to speak to a junior high and high school and share with the teachers and the students a little bit about these personality shapes. So what we know is that these different personality shapes, and we're going to discuss exactly what those are here in just a moment. I don't want to leave anybody hanging, but what we know is those basic personalities function together, sometimes poorly, even in an education setting, because we might have a teacher who is a circle personality, and they're trying to teach a student who perhaps is a rectangle personality. So having said that, our audience has no clue as to what we just talked about. So do you mind if we share with our audience for just a minute those individual shapes?
Not at all, Laura. Let's move forward.
Okay. So why don't we start, Jonathan, with the triangle shape? Let's share that with everybody. So the triangle personality shape, these people are people who are incredibly organized. They like to know what's going to happen next. They're not very spontaneous. They are planners. They're big time planners. And they like to have their day mapped out ahead of time. So they are wonderful administrative assistants. They're great bookkeepers, sometimes accountants. They like to have things in order. Well, here's the thing about them. If you interrupt them during the day, that can be a little frustrating for them, because they're also rule players. And the rule says, I'm supposed to do X, Y, Z at 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. And if you interrupt me, my rules just went out the window. And that can be very frustrating for them. So the next personality shape that we talk about is the circle personality. And circle personalities are people who are very nurturing. They tend to make all of their decisions based on feelings rather than facts. They're less concerned with the bottom line than they are how this is going to affect people. They are wonderful teachers, wonderful nurses, anything where they are in a helping field and they feel as if they're making an impact on other people's lives, counselors, things of that nature. And because they make so many of their decisions based on feelings, then if you present them with an overwhelming set of instructions and facts, they'll sometimes be a little bit leery and back off. The next personality that we're going to talk about are the diamond-shaped people. And I am a true diamond. I have a story to tell you later, Jonathan, but I am truly a diamond personality. And diamond people are very impulsive and they're very spontaneous and they're big picture people. I could probably talk about diamond people all day long because I am one. And so I know myself, right? But these people love to take on a project and jump into the project head first and complete the project as quickly as possible. And then they want to come back and tell you all about it. They're excited about it, easily excitable, and they're always talking, and they're busy people. They make wonderful police officers and EMTs, any job where they have to just think off the cuff, and they can run into the situation without a whole lot of planning. They're not big planners. The last personality shape that we're going to talk about is the rectangle, and rectangle people are typically, but not always, they're typically men, and you'll understand why in just a moment. They are what we call logic thinkers. I'm not saying that women are illogical, so I don't want any backlash from that. But what we're saying is they don't, unlike circle people, they don't make decisions based on feelings. They make decisions based on facts. 1 + 1 = 2. They will look at the charts and the numbers, and they're very concerned with the details of the process. And they want to make sure that whatever decision they make is going to be good for the bottom line. Okay? So they make wonderful scientists, wonderful accountants, anything where a very scientific mind where they have to break down the process. So we look at those different personality types and we say, well, that's great. We know everybody has a different personality, but how does that affect people at school, in business, in their marriages, with their families? How do they interact with their friends based on those shapes? And what kinds of complications could there possibly be if, say, a circle personality and a rectangle personality are trying to work together? So what shape are you? What shape do you think you are?
I am a cross. I'm probably more a rectangle, but I do have a lot of triangle tendencies as well. Again, and I've got my degree in accounting, so that would kind of bear out. There are a lot of rules in accounting, especially in insurance accounting, and I really enjoyed going in and knowing exactly what I was supposed to do based on what had been enacted by a legislative body or whatever.
Yeah, and so you and I are very opposite, and yet we know that we can figure out a way to work together that complements each other, because sometimes people don't figure that out. They say opposites attract, but that's not always the case. Sometimes opposites really repel. But if you understand that these different personalities are very necessary sometimes to accomplish a big task, they can work together beautifully. So knowing that you are a planner and I'm not much of a planner is actually a good thing. It usually goes something like this. We have a banquet coming up next weekend. Laura, would you be in charge of that banquet? And I say, okay, and can I get some help? And you say, well, Laura, I'll help you with the banquet. And so then a couple days later, you say, this banquet's coming up. What's our plan? And I say, well, I plan on setting up the banquet. That's the extent of my plan. And you're asking really what you're saying when you say, what's the plan is, I need details. What time will we be there? How many chairs are we setting up? Who's going to serve the food at this banquet? You want all the details. Well, because I'm a diamond personality, I don't get hung up on the details. I'm going to show up 2 hours before the banquet. I'm going to start sticking chairs wherever they go. And neither one of us are wrong. More than likely, that banquet's going to turn out just fine, right?
Right.
Tell me about some experiences that you've had in your lifetime. You don't need to name names or anything, but some experiences that you have had working with personalities that were maybe a little different than yours.
Oh, I can tell you one that really comes to mind right now. And I think I may have mentioned this to you when we were speaking one evening. I worked with a company that had a great set of marketing and salespeople. And in fact, I became a part owner of this company. But the primary marketing, I want to call him a guru because he is. The guy could sell ice cubes to people in Alaska. He was so good. But he understood sales, didn't really think about how much it would cost or any of the logistics behind servicing those sales. And we went out and went from selling probably in the first month, I think total sales of about $44,000 to within about 3 to 4 months, we were grossing monthly sales of almost $400,000. Unfortunately, as these things often happen, he was ready to expand because he had gotten bored with what he was doing. And I see that now. I didn't understand it then, but every time we try to rein him in, he would be like, oh, we've got to move forward. We got to do this. We've got to do that. And, maybe had we gone through a process such as the What's Your Shape workshop, maybe he could have understood a few things about what I do, and maybe I could have understood some things about what he does. So
absolutely.
Communication, talking, and, really just understanding and getting a getting a buy-in or making an agreement that we're going to accomplish XYZ goals, and we will know that we've accomplished it, we've been successful once this occurs, and at that time, then let's turn around and see what we can do to move forward. I think it's very prudent to always be conservative in how we approach our endeavors, and we weigh the risks. But we also have to keep an eye out for the rewards, and while not being extremely liberal in the fact of just going forward with every idea that we think about, we must be, I guess, lean enough to pivot quickly when an opportunity presents itself. Because sometimes companies wait too long, individuals wait too long, and they want to get all the answers. I think sometimes if you can just see half the staircase, you don't have to worry about what's at the top of the stairs. If you can see half of it and be reasonably assured that you can reach it, let's go for it. On the other hand, if you can't see anything and it's a shot in the dark, you don't want to do that either. So there are two risks that you have: risk of waiting too long and risk of not moving fast enough.
I think there's a fine line between those things. Because I am truly spontaneous and I am a diamond personality, then I have a tendency sometimes to rush the process. On the other hand, sometimes I see people who they nitpick over the smallest little details, just like you're talking about, and they drag, I call it beating a dead horse. They drag this thing out forever and you get nowhere. And so there has to be that balance and compromise. And I think sometimes it takes a diamond person to drag a rectangle person along and say, come on, we need to move. And sometimes it takes a rectangle person to slow a diamond person down, for example, and say, whoa, let's slow down a little bit. You haven't counted the cost. You haven't considered all of the things that need to be considered. And so they can work together very well. I'm going to show the test that we give our students, because like we said, we go into schools, we share this. It's amazing. I see teachers, when they learn this information about their students. I went to this school that I spoke at recently. Almost all of the teachers there were triangle teachers. And that makes a lot of sense. That rules are in place. They had their lesson plans in place, especially at a junior high and high school level. You have to keep that kind of order. But most of the students, about 70% of the students, were diamond personalities. And they are, because we're talking about a teaching and a learning style, the teacher might say, here's your syllabus, and in 3 weeks you have a paper due over such and such a subject. And the diamond student is saying, I've got 3 weeks. And normally what happens is and they're bored before they even, because they've heard about this paper coming up for 3 weeks now, and they're bored. And so the night before this paper's due, they're going to suddenly whip out a paper and they're going to turn it in. And the teacher's thinking, you could have done better on this. And the diamond personality is thinking, but I accomplished it. They're very competitive and they like deadlines. And once they're done with that paper, they're done. They're done. They're not going to save that paper for posterity. They're not going to file it away. They're done. And that can be very frustrating when you are a teacher and you have students like that, because what it seems like is they're not paying attention in class. They don't care about their work. And that's simply not the case. So we teach the teachers how to communicate and what types of things they can do to better motivate their students to learn in their environment. And we also teach the students how to understand their teacher's teaching style so that they can better excel in their academics. But for just a moment, let me show you, Jonathan, the test that we share with the businesses and the schools and the agencies that we can go into and do this workshop for. Are you seeing the What's Your Shape test, Jonathan?
Yes, I am.
On the screen here. So this is really very simple. Basically, what a person would do is look at these different words. They're going to look down the row. So for example, let me grab a pen here. If I'm looking at A, B, C, D, I have busy, organized, friendly, quiet. I'm going to look at these and say, which word most appeals to me? What word do I like the best? What makes me feel comfortable? And so for me, I sort of like friendly, so I would circle friendly. Now we look at the next row, competition, tidy, compassion, curious. Which word would stand out for you, Jonathan?
For me, tidy.
Tidy? Okay, yes. So you would circle tidy. And we just do that all the way down. Now when we get to the bottom, let me get out of here. When we get to the very bottom, my little circles move with the paper. Do you like that?
That's cool.
But when we get to the bottom, we'll add all of these columns up. So maybe in this column we had 12, and in this one we had 5, and maybe we had 18 over here and 3 here. And so then we look and say, oh, I had the most in this column right here, and that was column C. Well, that still doesn't tell us what shape we are. Let me clear some of this off. That doesn't tell us what shape we are. So we would want to then educate the teachers. Oops, let me try to click out of here. We want to educate the teachers. We want to educate the students as to, okay, I just took this test and I found out I'm a column A. What is a column A? And then we share with them, give me just a moment here. We share with them the answers to that. So do you see these answers?
Oh, there it is now.
So if they scored higher in column A, they are a diamond personality. And remember, we talked about diamond shapes just a little bit. And we talk about how, as students, how they learn, what types of jobs would be good for them. And the same with, all of the other shapes, the triangle, so on and so forth. So there is a lot of information that they get before we ever even show up for that workshop. They get to take the test. They get kind of a snapshot idea of what those shapes are. And then we go in and now we break it down and we talk a little bit more about those, and then we teach them how to interact with one another. I know you've attended several workshops throughout your lifetime and seminars and courses that your companies have sent you to. And that's part of being in the working world. We're always trying to better ourselves, and our employers want us to better ourselves so that we can bring that back into the workplace and function at a higher level. So tell me, how beneficial do you see, because I know you've attended workshops that have been highly beneficial, and some we've all attended some that I don't know if that was worth my time. But what do you think about this workshop now that you've seen all of the information?
The thing that I like about this workshop, What's Your Shape, the program, the system itself, is that I believe that it fosters more conversation between the participants to sit down and say, hey, I'm a diamond, or I'm a circle, or, I'm this or I'm that. How can we work together, and especially when you consider job functions and what is required in those job functions. And when it comes back to the educational environment, how a person learns, how students learn. I think that, I never want to stop being a student. I'm always a student. And one thing my late father-in-law used to say, he always wanted to learn something new every day. So I think that on jobs, sometimes once we're trained, especially, we think that, okay, we've learned what we need to learn and we've done it all. So now we kind of fall into a routine. Yeah. And this, I don't think, is the best thing for the company itself, and definitely not for the employee. Because I was reading an article about 2 weeks ago, and it said that people leave jobs not because they don't like the job or they don't like the people they work with, but because they stop feeling growth within themselves.
Absolutely.
They get in a rut, and they just, they get bored. And I can say that from personal experience. Some jobs I've left, it's not because I didn't like the people. I wanted growth, and I felt like I'd stopped growing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think one of the interesting things about this particular system is people don't just learn about themselves in the workplace. We're writing a book, the What's Your Shape book, and I'm going to show that here in just a moment. But in the book, we're also talking about what's your shape in your marriage? What's your shape as a parent? Our children have different personality shapes. And so I may have been a very diamond parent and said, okay, kids, we're going to go do this. But I have a very, very triangle daughter, one of my daughters. And wait a minute, what's the plan? I wasn't expecting this. We didn't do this yesterday. Why are we doing this today? And we can sometimes stress our children out. And so as we begin to learn about these different personality shapes and how they communicate with each other, primarily in the workplace, but we can extrapolate that information and use it in other areas of our lives too. So it's just some wonderful stuff. Speaking about the book, I want to show our website to our viewers. Give me just a second to pull that up, and we'll share that with them. And we're going to, okay, do you see that?
Yes.
I have to make sure that you see what I see.
Yep, the website
You
is
see it, I know our viewers can see it. So if you go to www.followlaura.com, you're going to come upon this page right here, and it's a little dizzy. I think you and I are going to work on that a little bit. It's a little busy right now, but these are, you know, I have another workshop that I don't necessarily go and do. People can buy this one. This is the How to Have a God Solid Marriage workshop, and of course my book that I wrote. But this is the book that we're working on. This is the What's Your Shape book, and it's going to have all of the information. What's your shape at work? What's your shape in your marriage? What's your shape at school? It's going to have all of that in there, and it breaks the shapes down into little pieces. And so you can even go and see, here we have a video. This is, I think, a video of one of the workshops that I did here recently. I'm not sure if the sound will play on this or not, Jonathan, but somebody who goes to the website can take a look at what this workshop is all about. And we'll just get out of there for now. But they can kind of take a look at that. And then when they get ready to actually schedule a time for us to come and present this information to them, they can get a hold of you. Is that right? They can get a hold of you? Where's the email address? What's the email address for them to get a hold of you?
My email address is jbsmith.lwe@gmail.com.
Okay.
Again,
we'll make sure that we have that on the bottom of the screen for our viewers, and they can get a hold. What do they just need to email you and say, hey, I would like to present this workshop at our school or our place of business? Is that all they need to do?
That's all they need to do, is just send me an email, let me know if you're interested in it, and I will respond, and we will discuss exactly what you're looking for.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. I want to share a story. I said I would do that, and I want to share a story with you because I think that this story completely illustrates how the different shapes think. In 1931, there was a man by the name of Frederick Ivan Bluff. Frederick Ivan Bluff was his name, and he went by Fib. That was his name, was Fib. Frederick, I get it? Anyway, yeah. So he had an automobile, and him and his dog decided to take a Sunday drive, and he was going up this big mountain road, and it was just a steady incline, and he was going up this road. And as he was going up this road, on the right hand side of him was this 13-foot wall that followed the entire distance of the road, and that wall was there to keep him or any other vehicle from going off this 8-foot cliff. Okay? So he's driving along, it's about 74 degrees out, the wind's in his hair, his dog's sitting next to him, and he was able to get that motor vehicle, remember this is 1931, and he was able to get that vehicle up to 75 miles per hour. All of a sudden, he went over the wall and over the cliff. They think it was about an hour later that they found Fib, 8 feet drop into this ravine. Both of his arms had been severed at the shoulders. To this day, that road is now named the Frederick Ivan Bluff Road.
Wow.
Now, I want to tell you that if I were a teacher and I was telling that story to my students, say in a history class, for example, my circle people are going to be sitting there going, what happened to the dog? Whatever happened to the dog? Oh my goodness, where's the dog? So when we get to that part of the story, they're no longer knowing the rest of the story. They didn't hear it because all they're doing is worrying. When is the teacher going to tell me what happened to the dog? Because remember, they're very nurturing, caring people. And not that other people don't care, but that's what's going to stand out for them in this story. Your rectangle people are going to say to me, that's a load of bull. There's no way that that car would have gone up a 13-foot wall and dropped 8 feet. The math doesn't make sense. And where is this road? I'm going to go home and Google it. I don't think there is such a road. Your diamond people are going to go home and tell their family members, oh man, I heard the coolest story that this guy's arms were chopped off at the shoulders. You're not going to believe this. He got that car up to 75 miles per hour. Your triangle people, in the meantime, are going to look at the teacher and say, which part of this is going to be on the test? Now, that was a made-up story. There is no such road, and fib is a fib, so none of that was true. But you see how, as individuals, we oftentimes see things from different perspectives. So how can a teacher help their students then get the information that they need them to get out of that story? Because perhaps what's going to be on the test later is, what was the name of the road in such and such a town that Mr. Bluff had an accident on? I don't know. Whatever the information is that the teacher's trying to present is what they want the students to learn. But unfortunately, if the student gets hung up on a certain piece because they're a circle or a rectangle or whatever it might be, they're never going to be able to effectively pass that class. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
So we go in and we help the teachers understand. We don't ask the teachers to change their personality shapes. We just ask them to understand their students. And we don't expect the students to change their personality either. We just ask that they understand their teachers and each other. Because sometimes what we see in this world, and it's a sad thing, is there's a lot of bullying going on because young people today don't understand these different personalities. I think sometimes adults don't understand either. And so this helps eliminate some of the friction that goes on between students too.
That's correct.
What would you like to add to this today? I know you are just a plethora of information, and I feel as if I've dominated our conversation. So what do you want to add?
When you were telling that story, I was thinking about my youngest daughter, and because we actually had this conversation the other night, how when she was in college, she would be talking to her instructor, and she would, always want to know, okay, what is on the test? That's what I need to know. Mm-hmm. But I would explain to her, and, back when she was going to school, I'd say, look, yeah, you need to know what you have on the test, but that's not what you study for all the time. You need to know the context of whatever you're studying, because not everything works the same way depending on different conditions and different people, just things change. So you need to, you want to know the answers, but you have to understand context, which means that you have to read the chapter.
Yeah, but that's, that sounds good, but when you are a diamond personality such as myself, who has time? I'm just going to go do it. I bulldoze my way. And now I was a very good student. I actually got decent grades and all of that. And so we don't want to oversimplify. Sometimes I think people get hung up when we give them that snapshot. We tend to oversimplify these personality traits. Within the different shapes are different personalities. You might have a diamond person who is also an introvert, and another diamond personality might be an extrovert. So there are still other factors within each shape. We're all individuals.
Right.
We're talking about a category here, and I always tell people we're just generalizing. We're not. And sometimes people say, gosh, I'm listening to this and I feel like I'm a little of all of these shapes. And I always tell people you are always going to have one that stands out just a little bit more. But, I may be a real diamond, but I also tend to have a little bit of that circle personality in me as well. And just like you said, you're rectangle, but you also have that triangle in you. Few people will score 100% in one column. They're always going to have a secondary. And so we work with those things as well. And we say, maybe you are predominantly a rectangle on your job, but at home you tend to be a little bit more triangle or circle, whatever the situation may call for. And I know sometimes we look at those rectangle personalities and we say, boy, those seem like heartless people, they don't have any emotions, and that's not true at all. What we're trying to do is explain in the simplest terms possible that this is how they come to make decisions, and this is how they learn, and this is how they communicate. It has nothing to do with how they process with their heart. So
right.
Yeah.
It's in a prior lifetime, I once worked as a life insurance agent, and one of the closing techniques that one of our trainers had was to get a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, and then write the pros and the cons of purchasing the life insurance policy. So if you had more pros, which you always did, of course, when you were trying to get the policy, you always came out. But, I can see really a lot of people would look at that and say, oh yeah, you kind of skewed that to go your way, but the what's your shape, that would basically say, okay, look, what are you really thinking about? And because of the way the what's your shape test is set up and designed, it has no agenda.
Correct.
What you score is what you score.
That's right. And it's all, I don't test you, you test yourself. This is all done on your own. And so you get to determine what shape you are. And you're absolutely correct in that there's no agenda. It's not as if we're trying to say, we want you to be a diamond, so you'll purchase our diamond products. We don't even have a diamond product. This is just an opportunity for people to do some self-discovery and some discovery of the folks around them.
Yeah. And how often do we really sit down and think, who am I? What makes me tick? We're so busy running around our days that we don't.
I think, and I love that question, because I think that I asked myself that question a lot, especially in my 20s. Don't we? We tend to do that in our 20s and our 30s, maybe. I asked myself that a lot. Who am I? I was trying to discover who I was as a human being. The problem was I didn't have the answers.
Yeah.
And by that, I don't mean I didn't know me. I just didn't understand me. And what the shapes do is it helps you understand yourself. We have some other programs that we offer as well. Of course, we're focusing right now on the shapes, but those programs are designed to help people at least have a frame of reference for who they are, to help them with that self-discovery process. And so I love that question when people say, who takes the time to really discover themselves? I think a lot of people do. They're busy trying to discover themselves. They just don't understand themselves because it hasn't been put in a context that they can grasp.
That's true.
Yeah. So,
true.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited about this workshop. I'm excited that you are on board. And I think you and I are going to do some fantastic stuff. I know that I could not have chosen a better person to work with me. You have some impeccable skills, and it's an honor. I feel so humble to have you on our team. And I'm anxious and excited. Of course, I'm anxious. I'm a diamond, but I'm anxious and excited to see where this journey takes you as well. Because one thing I do know about you is that when you put your mind to something, you can develop it and you can make it grow and you can make it happen. And when you're passionate about something, you like to see it to the end. I know that about you so far. So I'm excited to see where this takes you.
I am too.
I'm excited to get to meet the people who become involved in the workshop as well.
Exactly. I'm really looking forward to this. I think that this is going to really help a lot of people.
I think so.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think so. Well, give us some parting words of wisdom and remind us one more time what your website is so we can share that.
Oh, my email address?
I'm sorry. Did I say website? I meant your email. Yeah.
Well, I'm working on a website. Haven't finished it yet, but I'm getting, again, my daughter she is a front-end web developer.
Wow.
In e-commerce, so she knows all of the right words. And I just say, hey, I'm trying to do this. And she explains to me what I'm actually saying. But my email address is jbsmith.lwe@gmail.com.
Okay. All right. And like I said, we'll make sure that we have that on the bottom of the screen. In the meantime, you've been watching the Get Clear show, and we've been sitting here talking to Jonathan Smith. And Jonathan, thank you so much for being here this evening. I'm excited. I can't wait to see where all of this takes us, and I look forward to those of you who take the workshop getting back in touch with us and letting us know what wonderful things you learned through it. Thank you again for watching. As always, have a wonderful day.